Hi everybody, good evening. Welcome back to one another session of Swiflearn, where we are going to learn about plants, their reproduction system, sexual and asexual. Before moving on any further to today's session, I would just like to give you a small reminder and a small thing or a note about SwiftLearn. So it's about 100% live interactive classes that we provide you. Here we have personalized batches just for you, and we do not cater more than 6 students at a time. We dedicate academic mentor or to you to track your work progress. Moving further, we cover all the syllabus as per the schedule exam and handle custom requests as well, right? So you can take us any kind of help from us in your academics. Moving further, we provide you detailed progress report. We give you SAT, that is Swift Learn Academic Test Series, taking ultimate text practice test and subjective test for school exam. Yeah, so I guess that this is a lot of fun. In a fun way, you are learning over here with your live teachers, interacting them, knowing them, and clearing your doubts there and then. Moving further, if you have not yet subscribed the channel, please do that. Press the bell icon and never miss any update on a new video that's uploaded or any live session that's going to happen soon. Moving further, so today it's our third session about plant reproduction. In today's session, excuse me, in today's session, we are going to discuss about reproduction, modes of reproduction, sexual and asexual reproduction. See, these are all the parts that we have covered in our previous sessions in a lot more detail. Today, we are going to focus on each of the points, but not in that much of detail. We are going to focus today on how to answer the questions, how they are going to how the teachers are going to put the questions into your examination paper, for how much marks, how you can score better. Like if a question is for 2 marks, 3 mark, 4 mark, how the breakup is going to be. And then we're going to learn about that. If a question is for 2 mark, how much you should write, what it should include. If it's for 4 mark, how you should write, what should be the diagram, how should you label the diagram. And these are the things that we're going to discuss in today's session. After that, after discussing about the questions, that how the questions are going to work for you, or how you're going to take the answers, how you're going to write the answers in your question paper, we are going to move further to the basic questions, or I would say the questions that are possible to be there in your examination paper. So we are going to discuss about all those questions. I'm going to help you with writing the answers as well. I'm going to give you all the answers in detail as well. Yeah, so giving you another, like once more, a recapitulation of what we are going to do today. Reproduction, what is it exactly? Modes of reproduction, sexual and asexual reproduction. Yeah, moving further. Firstly, like I told you that we are going to discuss about what all types of questions can be there. That is types of question, how many marks are allocated to each, then the criteria on which your teacher is going to assess you. Okay, so assess you means how she is going to mark you. Okay, so how you have to write the answer. So firstly, if I talk about the first type of question is define. Very easy, to the point. Usually it's for 1 mark. Very easy, to the point. You just need to write the definition of that process or anything or any word that is being asked to you. Okay, so here you just are to the point, make it short, keep it to 2 to 3 lines, that's it. No need to put more than that information because it's just for 1 mark. Your 2 and 3 sentences can fulfill that criteria and you can get your entire full mark over there. Moving further is your second question, that is for 2 marks. Second type of question that is for 2 mark, define and very short answer questions. Right, a 2 mark, you automatically know that it's a 2 mark question. That means you need to just define with an example. I hope I'm making myself clear here. Suppose if they are asking you about any kind of asexual reproduction in a plant, so maybe you can give them examples. Okay, these are the plants, maybe. So firstly, you define it and then you give an example. Okay, these are the plants where asexual reproduction happens. Yeah, so it is minimum of 2 steps, writing a definition and an example, maximum of 4 steps, writing a 3 to 4 line definition, moving further with 2 to 3 examples at the end. Give reasons. Give reasons, that means a statement is already provided to you. There's a scenario given to you. You need to answer on the validation of that. Is it true? If it's true, why? If it's not, why? So that, and you have to write down because you feel that this is true because, and this happens further, right? So this is going to be a 3-mark question. You can write down about 5 to 6 sentences over there, but make sure you present your reason with a perfect, I would say, reasoning, that because this is happening here, that's why I agree, or that's why I do not agree with what you have written over here. And next question again for 3 marks, where your teacher can ask you to differentiate between or write the difference between. It usually is for 3 marks. Can we move on to 5 marks? If it's for 3 marks, make sure at least you write down 3 differences. Yeah, it's for 4 marks. Make sure you write down at least 4 differences over here. Okay, so minimum 3 differences should be given. It's for 3 marks, and an answer with clear parameters and example. Yeah, and make sure, like you are writing a definition, you are making sure that you write an example over there. Here also, if you are presenting any differences at the bottom, at the end point, make sure you mention some examples over there. That gives your teacher a better understanding of how you have explained these 2 different criteria, right? She knows by that, okay, that now you have understood the concept really well. Moving further, here we have short answer type question, that is again for 3 marks. So as the name suggests, short answer, keep it short, make it at least 3 points. Because it's for 3 marks, you can add on 1 more point, of course, over there if you know, but do not exceed more than 4 points, because at the end it's the question just for 3 marks over there. Okay, make them short, make them crisp, make them to the point over there. Okay, minimum 3 steps should be given in the answer with clear parameters and examples. Examples are very necessary in subjects like biology, because here everything is, we are reading about a particular organism or a plant or something that is happening somewhere inside a human body or a plant body, anywhere. So you can easily provide them with a lot of examples with every answer, right? Comes to long answer type questions. So there can be 2 or 5 marks question, where there can be long answer, where it is all about theory. There are no answers there, as it's necessary to give a diagram. And then comes another 5-mark question, where it is split into 2 parts. First one for 3 marks and the other one for 2 marks. Okay, so this is same question. This is the same question split into 2 parts. So firstly, the 3 marker inside a 5 marker, where you are going to write down the proper explanation with help of a diagram. So your answer, your explanation should be supported with a well-labeled diagram. Until and unless your diagram is labeled, you cannot get the entire full marks over there. So labeling of the diagram is a must over here. Okay. Make sure if it's just without the diagram, the explanation and description should be in a full detailed manner. Each and every point from the beginning to end should talk about the thing that is being asked to you, and to the point as well. And adding on to examples at the end is very must. Yeah. So now let us make a concept map, a mind map kind of a thing of the entire chapter, that what all things have we covered about plants. Are we all ready? If you want, you can just quickly gather pen and pencil in your hand, and then we can all make this together happen. The mind map, it's a best way. A concept map or a mind map here is the best way to recapitulate the entire syllabus, the entire thing that we have read into our previous sessions. So first, what exactly plant reproduction is? So it is a process by which plants generate new individuals or offsprings. Yeah, what does a plant do? It generates its similar kind of offspring, that is similar kind of plant, right? Moving further, there is asexual reproduction and there is sexual reproduction. So that means plant has two types of things happening simultaneously. There can be sexual reproduction happening, yeah, where there can be like two separate individuals are being like in the same way. Sorry, excuse me please. Yeah, so in the sexual reproduction, what happens is two individual or two different things are put together. They are going to come together and formulate another offspring. On the other hand, in the asexual reproduction, any one part or any singular part of the plant or a flower or plant itself is sufficient to produce its offsprings. Okay, here there is only one individual or one thing that is doing the entire process. On the other hand, in the sexual one, there are two different organisms that are participating in the formation of a new offspring or a new individual. Okay, now, so first thing, into an asexual reproduction, it is uniparental. Uni means one single. Yeah. Further, it is gametes. Here, the gametes are not found. Further, no involvement of reproductive organs over here. In the asexual, we are talking about. Now, moving to the sexual part. Here, if we say it is usually biparental, bi means two, that means two parents are like producing the offspring over here. Further, we have gametes are formed over here, and of course there are presence of fully developed reproductive organs that are necessary to formulate the offspring. Yeah. If I talk about asexual reproduction, new plants are produced without using seeds, right? Examples, vegetative parts like leaf or a stem. If you remember the examples where we could just cut a stem or just bury a leaf, or we just with help of that same thing, the offspring or a new individual appears, is your asexual reproduction, where seeds are not that necessary. Seeds are not required over there. On the other hand, in sexual reproduction, seeds are the most important part. Until and unless the seeds from one of the offspring reach to the other part, the process of the entire formation of a new offspring does not start. So new plants are produced with help of seeds over here. Yeah. Moving further, what are the reproductive part? The flowers and even the fruits play very important aspect of sexual reproduction. Moving further here, plants reproduction, vegetative reproduction in plants. Okay, so let's first learn about or revise about vegetative reproduction here. So in the vegetative reproduction, what all parts of the plant are involved? It's the roots that are involved, it's the stem that is involved, and there are the leaves which are involved in a vegetative reproduction process. Now, which plants, like when planted into soil, buds present on the roots grow? Right? So if you remember, even like if you have ever heard how like potatoes are being grown, so they use the same potato. What do? They keep up like some kind of small potatoes when the new crop appears. They keep some of them saved, and at the end, after a few months, they turn out like some bud kind of thing turn onto them, and then they put that thing inside the soil again, and from that entire all the old potato, the new potatoes just start to build up inside the soil. So what is this? A bud is a small kind of like a eye kind of a thing that appears from the roots. Yeah. Moving to stems, stems grows under the ground. Then leaves have buds which grow as a new plant after falling. If I talk about the stem example, if you see aloe vera, if you cut an aloe vera and put it in the ground, it grows into another kind of a plant. Moving further, if you look at having, I would say, a rose plant where a stem of a rose is cut and put it inside, it turns out into a new plant over there. Yeah. And then leaves have bud which grow as new plants. If you remember, we read about bryophyllum. Yeah. So if you can look at here the examples, if we talk about roots, what are the different plants that grow from roots? Like carrots, like sweet potato, like dahlia are the ones who grow from roots. You just need to have the like kind of a part of the plant that has buds onto it, and then it grows into an entire new thing. Moving on, the other one, that is stem. Here we have potato, ginger, and onion. Moving further to leaves, where they have buds again onto the stem of that leaf, a little thing, and that is known as bryophyllum. Moving further, what exactly a pollination is? How does pollination happen, and what are the different things happening in pollination? So firstly, pollination is transferring pollen grains from the male anther of a flower to a female stigma. Right? We have discussed this procedure in detail in our previous videos. If you want, please check out the other videos that are right there available on YouTube. Check them out. And then if you want to read more about pollination, go over there and read. It talks about transferring pollen grains from the male anther of a flower to the female stigma. Then there are different kinds of pollination that happen. There can be self-pollination, where when pollen from the same plant arrive at the stigma of a flower or at the ovule. Okay, and cross-pollination, where the deposition of pollen grains from a flower to the stigma of another flower. Okay, self means in the same flower. In the same flower, the pollens are going from the style to if you, I would say, the ovule or to stigma. Okay, but of the same flower or the flowers of the same plant. Okay, but on the other hand, cross pollination, we are like transferring pollen grains from one plant to another plant. It can be nearby, it can be far. It depends upon how the pollen grains have been taken through around the area. Okay, now there are multiple ways how pollen grains are transferred. That is also we are going to revise. Okay, now what is a pollen grain? A minute body. Why are we talking about these pollen grains moving from one place to another, and then because of them we are creating new species? What exactly are these things? This is a pollen grain is a minute body of varying shape and structure formed in the male structure of seed-bearing plant. Okay, so it's the if we say it's a male reproductive part, where it's inside the male reproductive parts, a small grain kind of a thing that need to be transferred from the male part to the female part to start the process of fertilization. Okay. Now, what are the pollination agents? That means what are the agents or what are the things that are transferring the pollen grains from one place to another? How exactly pollens are transferring in cross-pollination? So here, pollination can happen, or transfer of pollen grains can happen by wind. It can happen by insects, like they sit onto plants and then they move on from one plant to the another. If you can just see, there's a honeybee right here shown on your screen. What does honeybee do? So honeybees sit on different plants, right? Honeybees sit onto one plant, then to the other flowering plant, and to the other flowering plant. It's moving from one place to another. So onto their feet, onto their wings, onto their skins, there are the pollen grains. They just get stick and they move from one place to another. And then when they're moving from one place to another, by wind or by their movement, the pollen grains, they get attached to the stigma. Then further, artificial pollination where people, like human beings, are involved from transferring the pollen grains from one place to another, right? Moving further, we are now going to discuss thanks. We'll start with them. So if we start with first question, it says production of new individuals from the vegetative part of the parent is called dash. What is it called? I'm giving you a few seconds to think upon that, and then we'll come up with the answer. If we talk about a production of new individual from a vegetative part of a plant is called a vegetative propagation. It's known as vegetative propagation, right? Coming to the second question, a flower may be either male or female, right? A flower may have either male or female reproductive parts, such as such a flower is called as, so the flower that has either male or either female reproductive parts, they are known as unisexual flowers. Okay, so they are known as unisexual flowers. They have either male or either female reproductive part. They are known as unisexual flowers. The third question, the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to stigma of the same flower. Read it carefully. Okay, to the stigma of the same flower or of another flower of the same kind is known as pollination. Okay, so now here it's asking about both the things to you. It's asking about if the pollen grains are transferring from one inside the same flower, they're moving from like an anther to I would say a stigma, or even from one flower to another flower. This movement of pollen grains from one place to another is known as pollination. This is known as pollination. Further, the fourth question, the fusion of male and female gametes is termed as. So when the pollen grains transfers from one part, like one flower to another, or to same, what exactly happens after that? The process where the male and the female thing meets and fuses together is known as fertilization. The seed dispersal takes place by mean of dash and dash. What are the two main ways where I would say the movement of pollen grains is happening? How they are dispersing into the environment? It's happening due to wind and water. These are the two main means of dispersal. Okay, so that means suppose sometimes due to heavy wind, the flower breaks, it moves from one place to another. Due to rainfall, they travel long distances, right? And they reach to a new place. So that's why wind and water are considered as the two means of dispersal. So here I have written down the answers as well. If you want to take a look, we'll just go through them once again, one by one. Production of new individuals from the vegetative part of parent is called vegetative propagation. A flower may have either male or female reproductive parts, such a flower is called unisexual flower. The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same or of another flower of the same kind is known as pollination. The fusion of male and female gametes is termed as fertilization. The seed dispersal takes place by means of wind and water. Let's move on to some other questions. So here we start with the first question. What is sexual reproduction? What exactly is sexual reproduction? Let's read how are we supposed to write the answer. So what do you think? It can be a 3-mark question, right? It can be a definition also, that what is a sexual reproduction. So based upon the marks, it's for 1 mark or 3 mark. Make sure you pick up points from here from the answer. Now, sexual reproduction means involvement of two parents in the process of reproduction, right? That goes for 1 mark. Yeah, and then you can add on to a few examples as well. In this, it is found mainly in higher plants where male gamete and female gamete fuse to form a zygote. And zygote, when is the zygote formed? When the fertilization takes place, then the zygote is formed. These zygotes developed into individuals which are not identical. Offsprings inherit the characteristics of both the parent in sexual reproduction. Both the parents survive after the process of reproduction over here. So that is a proper definition for a question where it says, what is sexual reproduction? Here we go with the answer. I hope we are clear. Moving further, describe the different methods of asexual reproduction, and it is evidently, like you can see in the question itself, it is mentioned. Give example. So there are different methods of asexual reproduction. Let's start with the first one, that is binary fission. This process takes place in unicellular organisms. Unicellular means they are like having a male reproductive part or a female one. Yeah. Parent cell elongates and gets divided into two identical daughter cells. Each daughter cell grows into an independent adult. Yeah, so what is happening in binary fission? If there is one part of that particular, or there is one particular individual, what does it do? It itself cut himself into multiple parts, and those are known as its daughter cells, and those parts that are cut into different segments, they form another new individual with help of the conditions that are around that particular thing. Okay, so that is binary fission. Now, moving to endospore formation. What exactly endospore formation is? In this method, the spore wall is formed around a bacterial cell to form an endospore. This endospore germination to form an active bacterium under favorable conditions. What can be the favorable conditions? They can be humid, there can be water, there can be air, there can be light, there can be humid around it, and those are the favorable conditions where the cell divides itself into multiple cells. Yeah, and that is how endospore formation happens. Further, what is fragmentation? It is a process. The body of the organism breaks up into two parts. Okay, so the body, there was one single body, and notice over here, what is the body doing? It's just splitting itself into two parts. Then each part grows into a new filament, thus forming two organisms from a single one. That is fragmentation. Now there is spore fragmentation. Now we read just in fragmentation, one body divides itself into two parts, right? And then both the parts grow into a single individual itself. But what is spore formation over here? Now spore formation, the spores are tiny spherical unicellular structure protected by thick wall. The spores are stored in a hard outer covering, and this is called sporangium. Right? Under favorable conditions, the hard cover breaks and spores spread for germination. So if you see, even like when there is pollination happening, inside the pollination there are pollen grains. Even the pollen grains are covered into a hard covering. They are covered like that so that they can travel long distances if something is taking them from one place to another, so that they do not get spoiled in between. Similarly, here in spore formation, the tiny spherical unicellular structure is protected by thick wall. That is helping it to make it like go from one place to another, and as soon as they find a favorable condition, the cover breaks and the spore spreads and forms into a plant. Further, what is budding? In yeast, new organisms are produced by the bud formation from the parent organisms. After growing to full size, the bud gets detached and forms a new independent individual. Okay, that is budding. Moving on to vegetative propagation. When vegetative parts of a plant like stem, leaves and roots etc. give rise to a new one, it is called as vegetative propagation. Right? We have learned that how stem, leaves and root go, and you know the example as well. Go and refer to the other videos as well. And in the beginning of this video also, you can find about vegetative propagation and what are the examples of how of the plants that grow from stems, leaves and roots. Moving further to the next question, state the main difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. So now the question is very, very tricky, and now it depends upon how many differences you give in asexual and a sexual reproduction. So here we are. If you can see, let's begin from the beginning. Asexual first. Asexual reproduction is uniparental. That means one parent is involved. Sexual, two parents are involved. That's why it is biparental. Asexuals occur in asexual occurs in unisexual plants only. Sexual occurs in bisexual plant. It's quite evident. You just read it and it's like easy to understand right now. Very well, easy to understand. Moving further, asexual involves the production of asexual spore. On the other hand, in sexual involves the formation and fusion of gametes, right? And the gametes fuse into the ovule, ovulation fertilization happens. So they form the gametes over here. Now, in asexual, it says offsprings are genetically similar to the parent, right? It is happening in the same plant. It's happening right here, then maybe right here, there in the same flower or this flower of the same plant. So the offspring, the new thing that is going to be coming is going to be exact same copy of the parent. On the other hand, in sexual, offspring are generally dissimilar to the plant. Okay, so now why do you think it is dissimilar? It's not that dissimilar, but it is the combination of both the parent. That's why there can be a little change. They can be little different from which plant they were growing on. Moving further, in asexual, rate of reproduction is faster. On the other hand, in sexual, the rate of reproduction is slow. In asexual reproduction, there is no need of seeds. On the other hand, in sexual reproduction, seeds play a major role. Without a seed, the new offspring cannot appear. That was about that question. Moving further, what is pollination? Name the type of pollinations. Yeah. So we read this thing in detail in the first video of this chapter. If you want to have a detailed look into this, please go and visit the first video of this chapter. Now, if we talk about the art of transferring pollen grains from the male anther of a flower to the female stigma is called pollination. There are two types of pollination that happen. There is self-pollination and there is cross-pollination that happens. Okay. Now we read that what is pollination, transferring of grains, the pollen grains from one place to another. There can be two types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Now we just discovered two types of pollination. So the question can appear that explain the difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination. Let's read it in a little bit more detail, how you present it as an answer. So in self-pollination, pollen grains from the anther are carried to the stigma of the same flower or to the another flower of the same kind, right? In the cross-pollination, pollen grains from the anther are carried to the stigma of another plant. Pollinating agent is not necessary because it is happening in the same plant. On the other hand, in cross-pollination, pollinating agents are required, very, very necessary, right? Then it reduces the gene pool. Self-pollination reduces the gene pool. Gene pool, like you and me got some genes from our parents. Similarly, flowers and plants also get some genes from their parental body. Same. So here it reduces in the self-pollination, it reduces the gene pool. On the other hand, in the cross-pollination, it maintains the gene pool. In self-pollinating plants produce limited amount of pollens. On the other hand, for the cross-pollination plants, produce large amount of pollens, right? Because they need to transfer from one place to another. And in the way of process of movement from one place to another, there can be chances of, like, some of them will get destroyed, some of them will maybe flow into water, some of them may get maybe not well for production any further, right? So they need to produce a large amount of pollen grains, so at least half of them should produce the final result. Now, how does the process of fertilization take place in flowers? How does this fertilization as a process happens in flowers, if you have ever thought? Just give me a second. Excuse me. So how the process of fertilizations take place in flowers? Let's read this answer. When the pollen grains reaches the stigma of the same species flower, it starts growing out into pollen. Okay, it starts growing out into the pollen tube of the stigma. This tube continues to grow inside the style till it reaches the ovule. Male cells are released into the ovule for the fertilization with the female egg cell, and thus the zygote is formed. After this process of fertilization, the ovary develops into fruit and ovule into seeds. If now you want to have a detailed want to know about the detailed process of this thing, and if you want to add it, and if there is a question that is for 5 mark and ask you to write in detail, then you can visit the second video of this chapter, the Swiflearn video for this biology chapter. Over there, we have discussed about how this is an entire circle of things that happens, where a thing is coming from one part to another part, forming the another part, and this cycle continues. That is how the plants plants inside, I would say, a forest or anything are self-sustainable. This because this is a cycle that is being followed. What is seed dispersal? Various ways by which seed are dispersed. So, seed dispersal is a mechanism by which plant seeds are transported to new sites for germination and the establishment of new individuals, right? Following are the ways in which the seeds are dispersed. Some light seeds like that of mudder, which are hairy, dry, and small, are carried away by the wind to different places. Spiny seeds and fruits like that of xanthium and urena stick to the clothes of passerby and of any animals. These seeds are carried away by these agents to different places. In some plants having heavy seeds like that of coconut, water acts as a dispersal agent. Some seeds are dispersed with the fruit burst, like case of balsam and castor. Okay, the fruit burst happens over there. Further, did you know that the earth has more than 80,000 species of edible plants? But how many of us are consuming? How many are we consuming? 90% of food human eat comes from just 30 plants. 70,000 plants, on the other hand, 70,000 plant species are utilized for medicinal purposes. So what we discussed today, let's recapitulate. What all things have we discussed today in the session? We discussed about reproduction. We discussed about modes of reproduction. We discussed about sexual and asexual. And at the end, again, we discussed about different reproduction systems. Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today's session. If you have not yet subscribed the channel, do that. Please press the bell icon to make sure that you always get a notification whenever a new video is uploaded.